Welcome back to another episode of Wealth Matters for Financial Dominion podcast. I'm your host, Lenita Reeves, and I'm excited that Jeremy Schneider of Personal Finance Club, who retired at 36 as a multimillionaire, is joining us again this week. We're going to talk all things investing, and we're going to go through his ultimate investing checklist. You don't want to miss this episode. Listen to it in its entirety. It is full of golden nuggets, including a conversation that he had with another multimillionaire who sold his company, and some insider information about how your information is used when you try to invest on your own through apps like Robinhood, Acorn, so on and so forth. So make sure you listen to this entire episode. And we want to invite you to join with us in spreading financial literacy to the masses by supporting the podcast. Here at Wealth Matters, we thoroughly believe in Thankful Thursdays and $5 Fridays. If you want to ensure that we can keep putting out this great content, support the podcast with your $5 Friday donation. Just Cash App $PH Publishing, or you can do Venmo, which is at Purpose House. And then, of course, you can go to our website or our webpage to get all the different ways that you can support the podcast. We have a new home at Facebook, facebook.com/Wealth Matters Podcast. And then you can also go to www.purposehouse.net/Wealth Matters. All right, let's get into this great episode with Jeremy Schneider. Welcome back, everybody. I am so excited that Jeremy Schneider from Personal Finance Club. Can you show your t-shirt? Can you?
Oh yeah, still got the uniform on.
All right. Wonderful. So glad that you are back with us, Jeremy. We had such a great conversation last week, and I'm just so appreciative that you're back again with us for another week, because there are lots of questions about investing. And so this has been quite a journey for me for the last, I guess, 3 months now with this podcast, because it was created out of a prompting out of all of that was going on around us with coronavirus in the faith community, that, whoa, if somebody's losing their loved one to coronavirus, they don't have money to bury their loved one, how are we going to tell them God is good? We have to have resources to pour into that situation. So that means that we have to start to educate ourselves. We have to know that this is a wake-up call, that hopefully things will get better, but for a lot of people in a lot of places, things may get worse. So that means that we have to have the wealth, have the resources to be able to be a light and share good news. And so that's how this podcast started. And it's been quite a journey. I have learned that you don't know what you don't know until you start digging.
Yeah.
And that I've also learned that you always want to be teachable. You always want to be teachable. You never want to approach the topic of personal finance as if you already know everything. And if you do that, you will count yourself out of a lot of blessings and a lot of good information. So I'm glad to have you back, Jeremy. I'm glad that you're with us. And we're going to continue the conversation. I felt like we touched a lot of good stuff. There were so many nuggets last week, from your journey as an entrepreneur to your journey to investing, and to your journey to now being the founder of Personal Finance Club, and all the questions that you get. I visited the community. I joined the community, and I was like, nice. Whoa, how is he answering all of this? Like, how is he going to get all this done? Because it's a lot of people.
Yeah.
Yeah. But for the sake of those who were not with us last week, could you introduce yourself to the listening audience and just let them know how you're uniquely qualified to talk to them about?
I don't know that I am, but so yeah, my name is Jeremy Schneider. I'm the founder of Personal Finance Club. Maybe I'm a personal finance expert, or at least a very serious hobbyist. I run a community of champions of the individual investor, where we basically have no ulterior motives, and we try to basically help people learn about personal finance and investing. So yeah, my background was in computer science. I'm a computer programmer who started an internet company and sold it for $5 million in 2015. I quit my job in 2017, and then basically started Personal Finance Club to help this mission of helping people learn about money. So yeah, I don't know.
I
I
mean,
know a
when
lot
you
about it,
say it
but
like that, it's condensed, but I'm sure the journey, I mean, felt like a lot longer than that.
even saying that much feels pretty narcissistic when you're talking about yourself. But I get
Well,
it. Yeah. People want to people want to know who are you and why are you here?
yes, absolutely. Absolutely. And I was just so impressed with what you were doing and how um, I like to say how freely you were giving away your gift, sharing the information. And we had a conversation like a lot of times when you listen to folks in this field, in this industry, in this arena, they're so arrogant and they're so cocky that you don't want to hear what they have to say. And I did not find that with you. And that is part of what really drew me in to take a closer look at what you were doing. So I appreciate that about you.
Thank you.
And yeah, I appreciate that about you. And
I
so,
hope that I'm not.
well, we all have to check ourselves, right? It's a daily journey.
Yeah.
Daily journey. So you have gained a wealth of knowledge concerning investing, and a lot of people are interested to know more about that from you. So to start, I want to go back a little bit. You mentioned that there are two primary things that people should be investing in, right?
Mm-hmm.
You know, and I said last week in the African American community, there are some misnomers. Like everybody thinks you should invest in gold. You know, everybody is like, I got to be a homeowner, got to be a homeowner, got to have a nice car with these big car notes that are actually working against them. So could you recap the two things that you feel like people should be investing in and
Yeah. So
why?
if you want to build wealth, there's basically only two things that I would ever invest in. One is stocks and bonds, basically the stock market, and the other is investment real estate, which when I say investment real estate, I mean the one that you're not living in where someone else is paying you rent. And the reason is because those two things, just as a function of owning them, is generating wealth over time. So if you own the stock market, then all those companies are generating profits and paying dividends, and that's funneling back to you and creating this compound growth. And if you own investment real estate, the renter is paying you or renters are paying you, and then the property is appreciating in value, and those two things create compound growth. Whereas if you buy gold, you're just simply speculating that someone in the future will pay you more money for this rock than you paid someone else for. But holding it for long periods of time doesn't internally create more wealth like the stock market or index funds. It's the stock market or investment real estate. Okay. And your primary home, while it's great to own a home, and I certainly want that for anyone who wants it, it isn't a great investment because there is no like internal wealth creation there. No one's paying you money. There's no revenue coming from that. And in fact, when I think kind of the biggest misnomer that people have about primary residences is that they kind of ignore all the money they put into it and then focus only on the change in value. So all the time I hear someone say, oh, I paid $250,000 for my house 5 years ago. Now it's worth $300,000. I made $50,000. I was like, you didn't make $50,000. What did you spend on it? Like, oh, I spend $2,000 a month. I'm like, okay, that's $24,000 a year times 5 years is $125,000. So we're already at negative $75,000 that you've lost on this. Plus, you didn't tell me about your property tax or your property insurance or your maintenance. Like, you just redid that bathroom for $8,000. Add that to the $75,000 you've lost. And so I think people like to live in this fiction where they look at, it's like running a business where you're like, oh, I made $10,000 in my business, but you spent $40,000 to make that $10,000. That's not good business. That's called losing money, as do primary residences. And so, the message there isn't, there's someone who's watching now and saying, but renting is losing money too. Yeah, for sure. Your own, wherever you live costs you money, but don't go buy a castle and convince yourself that it's an investment, because it's not. That castle is going to lose money much faster than like renting a modest apartment would lose money. So whether you rent or buy, you want to live modestly. And then if you want to build wealth, you vector that money into the stock market and investment real estate.
Okay, wonderful. Wonderful, excellent. Because it's like the American dream. Got to have the nice house, got to have the nice car. And like you said, there's nothing wrong with having it. But the problem is that most times people buy too much house and too much car, and they put themselves in a situation where they don't have any extra income to be able to build wealth or save, as we say, to save and to build wealth. So how much house do you recommend? Like, Do you recommend like 30% of your income? Like, what? I mean, how much house should someone buy?
Yeah, I don't really have strict guidelines for that. I think you always just need to look at your total, and the reason I don't is because some people are like, well, what should my food budget be? I was like, well, it depends dramatically, because if you're in Montana and food is really cheap, then it would be very small. But if you're in New York City and groceries and whatever, then it might be a lot higher. And so I think for your whole budget, you basically just need to look and say, okay, if I make, $3,000 a month, you want to be saving at least 20% of that. So that would be $600. So you'd be $2,400 a month, and then figure out what in that budget makes sense for your housing. And so, but if you make $3,000 a month and your housing is $1,500 a month, it's going to be pretty darn tight to get everything else paid for, like transportation and eating and all that stuff, and then still have any money left over for like investing. So yeah, I think you just have to be honest with yourself. And I keep a budget, but I recognize that I'm unusual and that most people won't. And so I think another good way to go about it is to take your paycheck and then set up automated transfers and contributions the day that you get paid. And so if your paycheck is like $2,000 a paycheck, take 400, or maybe take $400 and put it right to an investment account. Maybe take $200 and put it right towards a savings account. And as long as that money comes off the top, then whatever's left you can figure out. But don't go robbing those accounts to buy a house, because that's not how it works. You have to live on what's left.
Yeah, I think that's great, because automating can make up sometimes for a lack of discipline that we have, right? If we put things like the automatic millionaire, just make it automatic, take it out. And a lot of times people don't do those simple things. Simple things like putting an alert on your bank account when it gets to a certain balance. Simple things like what you're talking about, automate that deposit into a savings account, automate the deposit into your investment account. Those are simple things, but really, really make a huge difference.
Yeah.
A huge difference. And I feel like that's, go ahead.
There's like a mentality thing there where people see money in their checking account and they just say, okay, see money, spend money. But if you get that money out and you vector it away and you mentally, it's already spent essentially on investing or the savings account, then you can look at it, and then you can like kind of like let yourself, give yourself a break and be like, okay, I have this money left over, I can spend it.
Yeah, I think that's essential too for someone who has a significant other who is doesn't have the same money language as them. I tend to be very, very frugal, but sometimes you end up partnered with someone who is not frugal, that they just feel like, hey, it's there, let's spend it. What do we it'd be like, why is it just sitting there? Like sometimes if you move it where they can't see it, exactly. You're able to preserve it.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
and just like have that conversation and say like, this money over here isn't there. That's there for like 20 years from now or whatever. And we're going to be, that's our boat money, or that's our not have to work anymore money,
Yes.
That already is spent in our future,
Yeah. People have different money languages. I feel like, wow, it's like sometimes you those automated things can save you some difficult conversations and save you from like going into your checking account and half of it being gone. Just move it. Just get it out of the way first. It's the safest thing to do. All right. So then I wanted to ask you, you have a great infographic. Love your Instagram, by the way, and your Facebook. I mean, just full of great infographics. I felt like I got an education just by going through them, and like for days I was just going through your infographics like, yeah, okay, good. That's great. Okay, I understand that. All right, good. So you have one that is called the Ultimate Investing Checklist. And I wanted to ask you to kind of talk through that today, because I got great feedback from last week, and people had great feedback, but they also wanted to hear some more about how you invest, what you recommend for investing, a little bit more details. All right, so your Ultimate Investing Checklist, you actually say that you should invest in this order. Yeah. Invest in these accounts in this order. Yeah. 401k/403b up to match. So you want to talk us through that first thing?
So just for some context, I said there's basically two things you can invest in: the stock market and investment real estate. And investment real estate is essentially like starting a business. You have to, maybe create an LLC and learn the space and do accounting and blah, blah, blah. And like, it's great, but it's a kind of a can of worms and a lot of work. And you don't have to, if you just invest in the stock market, that's good too. And so if you want to do investment in real estate, great. But this whole checklist is only about the stock market. It's only about that half of it, right? So this doesn't really talk about real estate. This talks about how to build wealth like the simplest, most direct way by just buying into the stock market. So all of this is in that half of the world, not the real estate half. So yeah, there's basically a bunch of different accounts people have heard of: 401k, Roth IRA, 403b, brokerage account, savings account, whatever. And so, but they all have different tax rules. And so to optimize your basically tax benefit, you basically invest in this order. And so the first is the 401k. And can we share a screen? Are people seeing our faces?
They're seeing our faces, yes.
Would I be able to share a screen with this checklist? It might be easier if people look at
let's see if I can make that happen. I think I have to make you.
Yeah,
I'll work on that while you're talking.
Okay, so the very first step is to invest in your 401k up to your match. And so 401k is an employer-sponsored retirement account. And so if you have a job that has a 401k option, sometimes that job offers a match. And what that match means is if I put in $100, my employer puts in $100. And if I put in zero, my employer puts in zero, which means if you don't do the match, it's essentially like burning money. It's like taking hundreds of dollars a month and just setting it on fire, which you would never do. But lots of people don't sign up for the match for some reason. Okay, I think I can share a screen now.
Yeah, I made you a host. So
let's see, desktop 2. So you guys can probably see can you see the investing checklist now there?
Yes, I see it. Great.
So that's it's this simple, the ultimate investing checklist. So that number one is what we just talked about, the 401k. Sometimes it's called a 403b or even a 457. These are all employer-sponsored accounts. So if your job has a retirement program and they offer you a match, always the first thing you do is you invest up to that match, because if you don't, you're flushing that money right down the toilet. Mm. Step number 2 is an HSA. This one is a little bit weird because relatively few people have an HSA. You have to have a health insurance plan that is HSA compatible. But if you do, and you can open an HSA, your next $3,500 go under HSA, because HSAs have this amazing triple tax benefit, which is money goes in tax-free, money grows tax-deferred, which means you don't have to pay tax on that until you take it out. And then if you spend the money in there on a qualified medical expense, then it's tax-free again. And so it's like kind of the only place in all of American taxation that you never pay tax. Like you don't pay tax when you make it, you don't pay tax when you spend it on a qualified medical expense. And so the HSA has like this better tax break than anything else out there, which is why it's number 2.
Yeah. So I was kicking myself when I saw this because I had access to this for years and didn't use it when I was working in corporate America. So then how would someone who, let's say, for example, their job doesn't offer them a health plan that has an HSA, can you purchase one yourself or open one yourself another way? How do you do that?
So any of these steps that don't apply to you, you just skip. And if your health insurance plan is not HSA compatible, you just skip it. And the HSA is a great account for like academic tax efficiency reasons. It's very cool, but I wouldn't recommend changing your health insurance priorities to chase this like relatively small tax break. You gotta get the health insurance you need for your situation, which is a whole nother. I could probably create an entire account on like health insurance figure out club because it's such a mess. But yeah, I would never suggest to someone to be like, oh, just don't worry about the cancer, get the tax break. But yeah, so if you don't have an HSA, just skip it. It's not that big of a deal.
Okay.
But if you do, prioritize it. So step 3, and that the same goes for the match. So if you're someone who does not have an employer match with a 401k and does not have the HSA, you've skipped these first 2 steps, and that's okay. That's okay. There's plenty of places to put your money. Step 3, basically everybody can do is a Roth IRA. And so a Roth IRA, just like a checking account, a savings account, a Roth IRA is just another type of account. And when you go to a investing website like Vanguard, Fidelity, Schwab, Betterment, etc., you click open an account. The next question they're going to ask you is what type of an account, and then you can choose Roth IRA. And the cool thing about a Roth IRA is when you open that type of account versus a savings account, for example, if you have a legitimate savings account with Bank of America or your local credit union or whoever, you actually pay tax on the interest that you make in that savings account. And right now the interest is so small, it's irrelevant essentially, but you are taxed on it. Whereas in a Roth IRA, any money you put in there and let it grow is never taxed again. And so if I let's do some math real quick. I'll do it for you. It's not going to be too hard. So you can put $6,000 per year into a Roth IRA. The government limits it because it's such a good deal on taxes. They don't want billionaires just funneling all their money in there. They want just like normal people who are working to try to like really tempt them with this account to save for their own retirements by giving them this great tax break. So you can only put $6,000 a year in. So let's say you do it for 10 years. That's $60,000. Then let's say you let it, you never invest another penny, but you let it grow for 40 years or till the end of your retirement. And so if you get a 10% rate of return, money doubles about every 7 years. And so in 7 into 40 is 35 is what, 5? It's like 5.5 times. Let's say the market doesn't do that great. It doubles 5 times, okay? So you put your $60,000 in there, you never touch it again, and then you just let it grow with this compound growth of the market, and it doubles 5 times. Let's see what happens. Doubling once takes it to 120,000, twice 240, 480, let's say 500 for round numbers, $1 million, $2 million. So that $60,000 after doubling 5 times becomes $2 million. And if it's in a Roth IRA, you never ever pay tax on it. You can take $1 million out, go buy $1 million home, write him a check, walk away with the home, no mortgage, no nothing, and still have $1 million left over to live on for putting $60,000 in over the course of 10 years. So that's, and if you didn't put in a Roth IRA, if you put it into a regular taxable brokerage account, that 60,000 turns to 2 million. The government would say, hey, you just made 1.94 million of growth that you haven't paid tax on yet. You have to pay tax on 1.94 million, and the rate on that would be a capital gains. Capital is money or stuff. Gains is how much it gains. And so they say, hey, you need to pay capital gains tax on all this money you made, which is 20% or about $400,000. And so your 2 million turns into 1.6. 1.6 ain't bad. Don't get me wrong. I'd much rather have 1.6 million than 60,000 if it was in a savings account. But I'd much rather have 2 million than 1.6. So that's what, that's why the order of the thing is. It's not massively bad if you get the order wrong, but you might as well take that $400,000 of free money, tax-free money. You with me?
I'm with you.
Okay,
I'm with you. And I share with you that I just opened a custodial account for my daughter, a kid's Roth, custodial Roth. And it was so satisfying to have that conversation with her. Yeah. And I'm so grateful, to be able to give her the information that nobody was giving me at 16, 17 years old. So if she just consistently puts some money in that, I mean.
And your daughter doesn't have 40 years before 65. She has closer to 50 years, which really gives her about 2 more doubles because we kind of skipped one of the doubles. And so that 2 million becomes 4 million, 8 million. It's like the numbers just get astronomical.
I certainly hope so.
Yeah, right. But early and often is one of the rules. I think I might be on here. Yeah. That's like the second rule of personal finance comes early and often, because if you put $100 and forget about, you might have $2,000 at retirement, but that's not enough to live on, But if you put in $500 per month, then you get to this millions of dollars situation.
Okay.
But investing for kids, we're kind of getting off. Let's go to step 4. 401k, 403b up to the max. So step 1 was if you only have $500 a month or you only have $200 a month to invest, your first 200 goes towards your match. If you have like 6,200 and your match is only $200, then your first 200 goes towards your match. The next 6,000 goes to your Roth IRA. If you have 10,000, for example, this is like annual numbers. If you have 10,000 per year, then the first 200 goes towards the match. The next 6,000 goes toward the Roth IRA. I'm assuming that you don't have an HSA, so we're skipping it. Then the next 3,800 that's left goes back into the 401k. And so it's the same 401k, except you just prioritize it later. And so how that might look if you're an individual person, say, okay, I know I'm going to have $10,000 this year to invest. I know that the Roth will only be able to hold 6,000. So the remaining 4,000 will go into the Roth IRA. Some of that will be matched, some of it won't, but you're kind of doing steps 1 and 4 inside of the 401k. I just said Roth IRA. I meant 401k. All these these need like have better names, like 401k. Like what a crazy string of numbers, but it's like the line of the tax code that invented this thing. So that's the next step. But the reason that's the next step is because the 401k has that same kind of awesome tax break where you can save yourself that $400,000 at retirement. Then the government limits contributions to a Roth IRA to $6,000 per year. This is actually last year. I need to make an updated version because now the 401k is $19,500. And so if you are contributing more than, $25,500 this year. So if you're like really a high income earner and can save more than that per year, then you're basically in like the enviable position, which is you make too much money to get any more tax breaks. The government said, okay, 25,000 a year, that's enough. You are going to be extremely wealthy if you invest that throughout your career. Okay. No more tax breaks for you. You have to invest the normal way, which is just a regular old brokerage account. And this is how everyone used to invest. Like these tax breaks are kind of like relatively new inventions. We're talking like 70s and 80s. Before that, just everyone invested in a regular old account, just like we have a regular old savings account, which is fine. You're like I said, in a regular old account, you can turn that 60,000 into 1.6 million. It's not 2 million. That's like the difference. That's like what the tax break buys you. And so step 5 is with everything left over, you dump it into a regular old taxable brokerage account. And this is the type of account you can open with Vanguard, Fidelity, Schwab, Betterment, etc. And so all that leftover money. So again, like if I'm a person who makes $30,000 a year, my strategy might be like, okay, that can invest $30,000 per year. Okay. If I make $30,000, I'm probably going to be like on steps 1 and 4. I used to make $36,000 a year. I try to put $5,000 away into my Roth IRA. I didn't have a 401k, so that's all I did. But if you can invest $30,000 a year, like let's say you make $100,000 a year, and you can live, you pay tax, and you can live on 40 and invest 30 or something. That's amazing. That's going to make you very wealthy. Then your strategy might be, okay, I'm going to easily max out the Roth IRA. I'm going to easily max out the 401k at 25.5. And then with the remaining $5,000 or so, I just put into a regular old brokerage account and let that grow.
Okay.
You with me?
Okay.
So all we've talked about so far is which accounts. But the biggest, number one, most common mistake I see investing is people conflating the type of account, which is just an empty box or an empty bucket into which you put stuff. Okay. You're confusing that with the stuff that goes in the account. So if you open up a Roth IRA and you put money in, you're not done. You have to invest it. You have to buy something with it, right? And it breaks my heart when I see a young investor who puts money into a Roth IRA and like puts their hands up in success and says, I've invested in my Roth IRA. And I said, no, you haven't. I mean, I'm very nice about it, and it breaks my heart because they're like the victim of this like very confusing system or whatever. But all you've done, you just moved money there, but the money's not doing anything yet. You need to buy something with that money, i.e., you need to buy stocks and stuff. Yeah. And so then that's this next little checkbox. So you can see our first little checkbox here is which accounts. The second checkbox is what goes in the accounts. And the answer is you choose index funds. Maybe as few as one index fund. It's actually my very personal favorite way to invest is to buy what's called a target date index fund, which I have a bunch of articles on my site. If you go here up to personalfinanceclub.com and search target date index fund, it will show you the exact ticker symbols, everything you need. We can go to that later if you want. But basically, inside of all these different accounts, your 401k, your HSA, your Roth IRA, your brokerage account, you buy the exact same thing. It can be the exact same thing. There's like slight little tiny tweak ways to optimize it by moving around, but that doesn't really matter. It's like academic. Just buy the exact same thing. You buy and hold index funds. And an index fund is basically, I think we talked about last time, which is just the sum total of the stock market. You put the entire stock market into your little accounts here, and then you've guaranteed your fair share of all market growth as every single US and global company is working and profiting and creating dividends and building money. It's all funneling back and shoving itself into your little 401k IRA, not to be, demeaning like little, but it will go big because of all that growth, right? And so the point here is what not to do is to pick and choose stocks, to day trade, to buy Bitcoin, to buy investment or insurance products. All this stuff that you hear about is people trying to sell you stuff. I'm not, because I haven't made any money doing this yet. And I'm just regurgitating the same stuff that's in every classic book on investing where they have altruistic, intentions. So when you buy the whole stock market, you've eliminated all the fees, all the helpers who are trying to charge you money to like do it their way. And you have a direct, kind of direct line from the stock market plowing that money into your account. So that's why you choose these index funds. Next
okay, so I have a question.
Yeah. Okay,
I have
let's
a question
do it.
for you.
Yeah, stop me anytime.
It's okay. No, it's good. I'm soaking it in, and I'm sure everybody that's listening is soaking it in, because it is a little bit different than probably what people have heard, because most people have heard, buy stock in, those big five, buy stock in Amazon, or buy stock in Microsoft, or buy stock in blah, blah, blah. But what you're saying is that the index fund allows you to invest in the entire market, like the S&P 500. You buy index fund, you're investing in all the stocks in that market. And isn't it true that part of the benefit of that is that you mitigate some risk, right? So if one company does terribly bad and another company does well, you're investing across all of those companies, not just one, right?
Exactly. So let me give you an example. Right now, Tesla is a very popular stock and it's going up a lot. And so everyone has an opinion on Tesla. But here's the thing, is like the sum total of human knowledge, every single person on the planet who has access to the market is constantly trading Tesla. And so all that information is constantly being priced into the stock. And not only that, but there's very, very researched, smart entities that know way more than any one person does. So for example, there are companies who literally put satellites into space and rotate around the Earth and take pictures of the Tesla plant. They count the cars coming up the line so that they can know before other people how many cars Tesla's going to produce that quarter. Then they preemptively buy or sell Tesla based on that. And so if you as an individual, and I haven't even started, then there's other companies who will hire kids from Yale and Harvard, and they call them analysts, and then they call Tesla executives. I know this because they call me, because I used to work for a publicly traded company, and then they pay them hundreds of dollars an hour just to ask them questions. And it's all within the realm of being legal. They're not getting what's called material non-public information, which would be insider trading, but they're asking them, what's the culture? What do you think about the CEO? Like stuff that's like just their perception. And then these analysts take that plus the satellite data plus 1,000 other data sets and say, this is our assessment. Is Tesla slightly more likely or slightly less likely to outpace the market?
Okay.
Then there are these algorithmic trading companies who basically crunch massive data sets. They hire PhDs in computer science. They write programs. They compete for real estate a quarter of a mile closer to trading servers than the other guys, because they're making trades in 1,000th of a second constantly. Those guys are competing and making these tiny little micro decisions. Is Tesla one penny too high or one penny too low, and trading a million times a day? And so if you as an individual, or any person as an individual, suggests, hey, I know Tesla's a good buy because Tesla cars are cool and they're the future, everybody else knows that too, and that's already priced into the market. And so what you didn't account for is how Tesla actually had a really bad quarter because not enough cars were coming off the line based on the satellite information that you don't have access to. And you bought it at $1,000 a share. It's about to drop to $600 a share. So what I'm trying to paint the picture of here is that it's very, very difficult to beat the market. You can't pick and choose individual stocks and decide which ones are going to do better than the market. But if you buy every stock, since all these stocks are being priced by all these entities perfectly, you can basically take them all in your arms all at once. And then the good ones, the bad ones, you don't know which are which, will all be profit or will all be pushing money back in your account. And so you're right. I think like when people hear invest in the stock market, they think go pay someone for stock tips or pay a stock trader or whatever to figure out which stocks are good and bad. But all those stock tip guys and all those stock tip traders are, excuse my language, full of shit. Like they don't know. They're just trying to sell their service. But their service, they can't beat the index fund. And so you can cut them out of the equation, mainline into the stock market itself and get all the profits for yourself instead of giving it to your stock traders or to your stock tip subscription. And that's how you're going to maximize your own wealth.
Remove the middleman.
It's, there's studies done on like 15 different aspects of investing, which is like the manager, the like there's these mutual funds that basically manage money for you, and it's like looked at the manager, how long they've been there, their ratings, their trading speed, their location. Like it looked at everything that they could find and figure out which of these factors are predictive of better fund success. Like which ones, like if we buy only 5-star rated funds or funds that trade in a certain way or funds that have the best managers, it turns out of the 15 factors they looked at, 14 of them had zero correlation to future success. So you couldn't they had nothing to do with future success. And the only thing that predicted better future success is lower fees. The less money you pay to all these guys who are taking the cream off the top and giving you the leftovers, the less cream that you give to the stock traders, the more money you have. That's the only thing that's predictive of future success. Everything,
Wow.
you might randomly get lucky for sure. Like we've all heard the story. I hear it every day. People tell me their wins. They don't tell me their losses. You might get lucky, but over long periods of time, you will maximize your own wealth by just minimizing fees, minimizing the risk of buying individual companies, and maximizing your diversity and your growth by buying the entire market. That's what an index fund is.
Wow. What you just shared was such valuable information, because what you said was like the only predictor is the fees. Like, and everybody is just like kind of running their own game. I don't know, but that really struck me what you just said about the fees. That's phenomenal. That's phenomenal. So index funds, got it. Tell me, one thing I'm not clear on is, but I think I understand, but tell me just so everybody's clear. So 3 kinds of index funds: U.S., international, and bonds. Is that right?
So yeah, that's what they call a 3-fund portfolio. And so if you buy just those 3 things and nothing else, as long as we're sharing a screen, we can go explore the space here.
Yeah.
And so all the stuff is available on my website. You can come look at any time. And so a 3-fund portfolio is basically something like this. So we have just the exact three you mentioned: a U.S. stock market index fund, which is this dark green; a non-U.S. stock market or international stock market index fund, which is this light green; and then a bond index fund. And so bonds are the safer, slower growing investment. The greens are the more aggressive, faster growing investment, but the trade-off is more volatility. You're going to have some big swings like we had in March with the coronavirus crash. And so this top one would be considered an aggressive 3-fund portfolio. And so if we go, remember I said choose 1 to 5 index funds, you can choose exactly 3, perfect number, doesn't need to be more, doesn't need to be less. And then these are the 3, these are the actual ticker symbols. So if you go open a Vanguard account, you could buy VTSAX. Can I make this bigger for you? You can buy VTIAX, which is the international. So I did the little emojis here: US for the US flag, the global thing for international, and then this paper thing for bonds, which is VBTLX. And so you can go to Vanguard.com, you click open account, you click Roth IRA. It's going to ask you what to invest in. You choose these 3 things. You put money in. I know it's a lot the first time you're hearing it, but it literally takes like an hour or 2 to figure out, and it's going to make you $2 million over the course of your career. And so if it takes you 2 hours to figure out, that's $1 million per hour you're making for the time you put into this. It's worth it.
Yeah, I think that's worth it.
It's worth it. I would definitely work for $1 million an hour if you ever have that job offer. Almost anything short of like killing myself or something, or being like lacking integrity. I probably wouldn't do that either. But so there's the 3 things, and so you only need these 3. The reason there's so many listed on this page is you choose your set of 3 based on who you opened your account with. So if I have a Vanguard account, I would choose these 3. If I have a Fidelity account, I would choose these 3. If I have a Schwab account, I would choose these 3. If you don't have access to these accounts, you can probably, so for example, if you have like a TD Ameritrade account, or if you're overseas or something, you might have to buy ETFs instead, which is just the same, which is fine. And so you can trade any of these ETFs, same thing. You can buy those 3. This is if you're in Canada, you can buy those 3. And so, and the thing is like, so if you're saying, okay, well, what's better, this one or this one? And the answer is they're the same. It's just literally like the same stuff in different package. I'll show you. If you go to my site and search best index fund, this is like all those different index funds charted against each other. So you can see, and they're not even exactly the same. They're just like all different. One are like large cap US index funds. One is total market US index funds. But you can see basically any index fund is so close. It's like right on top of each other, and you don't know which one's going to do better in advance. And so when people ask me like, what's the best index fund? The answer is you're missing the point. Index funds aren't better or worse than each other. They're all optimally investing in the total market. And so, you just pick one basically. I mean, I hate to be like aloof about it, but you pick the one that matches your brokerage account because they're all going to be the same.
They're going to do the same thing, and they all have really low fees.
Right. And so, a typical mutual fund. So a mutual fund is when you pay someone to basically put your money into this fund, and then they choose stocks for you. The fee is about 1% per year, sometimes up to 2% per year. A typical index fund, like one of these, is like 0.03%. So it's like 33 times less. If you get a 97% off deal at a store, that's a good deal, right? Like, if someone's paying $10,000 for a car and you buy that same car for, what is it, like 300 or something, that's a good deal, right? That's the deal you're getting with these. And you don't get a crappy $300 car. You actually get an even better car. You get a better fund because the performance is going to be better. So that's why index funds are great. I love index funds.
I love this because I remember the story that we shared last week where Warren Buffett challenged some of those guys to say, I'm going to put my money in index funds. You do what you typically do, and let's see who comes out better. And he beat him just by putting his money one time.
He literally bought VOO or something like that. He just bought one of these, and he's like, yep, I'll put in the index fund. Like, you know what I'm going to do. You can do whatever you want. And they couldn't do it, because because they're competing. Like when a hedge fund is competing to beat the index fund, they're trying to beat the satellites. They're trying to beat the algorithmic traders. They're trying to beat the Harvard analysts. They're trying to beat the system that's got so much information and all those, the satellites and all those guys, they're competing against each other too. When one sells, they're not just all stealing from like little individuals who are getting fleeced every day. They're competing against each other too. And so to beat them, you don't need to beat, it's kind of different from poker. With poker, you just got to like beat whoever's worst at the table. At investing, you have to beat whoever's best, because the two best guys are setting the price of the market. And so if you want to beat the market, you have to beat the best guys, and they can't even beat each other because they're always constantly pricing. And by the way, it's expensive to put a satellite in space, right? And so when they're trying to beat, when they're spending $500,000 or $1 million or whatever it costs to put a satellite into space these days, like they don't only need to beat the other guy, they need to beat the other guy by more than $1 million to pay for their stupid satellite, or else they could have just bought an index fund. So you can skip the satellite, skip the game, just buy the index fund, and basically likely beat all of them anyway.
Such good information. Such good information. I hope that the listening audience is taking this in. If you didn't know what you were doing when you started investing and you don't have index funds, let's go back. Let's make some changes and let's get at least some of your money into index funds. I tell you, it's just such valuable information. One question before we start to wrap up: why should we reallocate towards bonds as we get older?
So that's the second to last check mark there. And so I showed you in that 3-fund portfolio that the aggressive portfolio is 90% stocks, US and international, and 10% bonds, that small slice. But if you're someone like my mom, who is turning, she's 60, I don't know, starts with an S in a couple of years.
And she swore you to secrecy.
Yeah. Well, I'm turning 40 this year, so you can just guess how old she was when she had me. And so she has done very well in her career, and she's got like her little nest egg there. And she doesn't want her nest egg to get cut in half because she's in retirement and wants like just kind of a consistent income. Okay. And like she doesn't want to like check the news and be like, oh, the net worth of my entire life has just been cut in half. And I could, be Jeremy, the academic, could be like, well, mom, if you hold for long periods of time, it will recover and you'll do even better if you're more aggressive. And she's like, I don't care. I just want my money to be safe. Like I can have forever. I'm an age that starts with an S. And so, and that's fair, because the thing is like, if you don't need the money for 40 years, then yeah, if it goes in half next year, who cares? Because it's going to come back and then double 5 more times. But if you need the money every year because you're spending it, then you prefer the more smooth course and the consistent income. And so that's what bonds provide. They provide less volatility. Like this is stocks, this is bonds. And then stocks just give you like a little bit in dividends, but bonds give you more money in like interest payments. And so as you age, you basically slowly take your chips off the table, move from stocks to bonds. And then when you're 65, you might have a 50-50 portfolio. Then when you're 80, you might have like 90% bonds and cash and 10% stocks, because at that point, you don't really have a 40-year horizon anymore. But if you're 60, you could still live 30, 40 more years pretty easily. Mm-hmm. And so you don't want to be 100% bonds or cash when you're 60. You want to use those decades of your remaining life to continue the money working for you. So yeah, that's really all cut towards bonds. Rebalance on the fixed schedule just means, like, let's say our target asset allocation of that 3-fund portfolio is 60% US, 30% international, 10% bonds.
Okay.
And then international had a really good year and went up by 5%. US had a bad year, went down by 5%. Then you basically take some of that international and put it into US. That's called rebalancing. And, I say a fixed schedule because you don't want to be rebalancing emotionally, being like, oh, bad day in the market, let's go make some trades. You just want to do it once a year and be like, oh, we're a little bit off, we'll fix it and then continue. Because the less human emotion you put into your investing, the better you'll do. Human emotion just serves to like get taken advantage of. I'll tell you one more story. I sold an internet company for $5 million when I was 34. And then this other guy sold an internet company to the same company that I sold mine to for many more bucks, which made me very jealous, but whatever. But we had lunch one day because I hadn't met him yet. And we were just talking. He was talking about these algorithmic trading companies that I mentioned that compete mm-hmm. for the server space and making trades in a thousandth of a second. He said that he had firsthand knowledge of their strategies, and they basically crunch these massive data sets. They like look at the temperature in Manhattan, and they look at the satellite data, and they look at Twitter sentiment, and what the president's tweeting, and they look at like everything they can to be making like instantaneous decision. Oh, the stock is better. And he said the number one data set that they have that is more predictive than any other data set, that does a better job for them than any other data set, is collecting human trading information, what humans are doing, and then they do the opposite. So they just buy human trades, and then they do the opposite. And not because they're trying to like take advantage of a specific trade, like, oh, if this guy's selling them to buy real quick and then sell to him more. They're doing it after the fact by a thousandth of a second or whatever. Mm-hmm. But because humans are kind of panicky, emotional animals, they know that human sentiment is counter to whatever wise investing sentiment is. And so they just do the opposite. And so there's a popular trading site called Robinhood right now. And everyone's mm-hmm. like, why? And Robinhood famously was free, or is still free, and kind of like push the whole market that way, which I like because I like minimizing fees. And people like, how does Robinhood make money? Well, they have this wealth of value, which is all these human traders making all this money or making all these trades. They sell that data to these algorithmic traders, and the algorithmic traders just do the opposite that everyone on Robinhood's doing, right? And so when you're on Robinhood trying to pick and choose stocks, you're basically like a lamb for the slaughter, to the algorithmic traders, right?
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, I know. It's the more you wrap your head, and it's all counter to, human intuition is like, oh, like I got a hunch. I heard a stock that, like, you think you should be able to beat the market because you've seen it done, you've heard it done. We've all been conditioned to believe that we're all above average. Like, all this stuff bakes into human sentiment being that we should beat the market. But when you start to wrap your head around how the market works and how efficient it is, and all these stories, you were like, okay, like I'm just going to buy the index fund. And that's how you beat these guys too, because they don't like when you buy an index fund, because then you're taking your share of money, and they're trying to get your share of money, right?
And your data, right?
And your data, right? Exactly.
Your data. I mean, I'm of the sentiment, if it works for Warren Buffett, then why shouldn't we do it? Like,
I agree. Yeah.
I mean, come on, richest man who ever lived, potentially.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know why we would try to just.
He's also said that when he has spent his career actually like buying companies and like outperforming the market most years, but through massive amounts of hard work and investigation and things like that. Mm-hmm. But he said that when he passes on, he doesn't want his wife and his portfolio, I think most of it's going to charity, to be managed by his team. He wants it to go into an index fund. Like, he literally has that much faith in index funds that he's like, we shouldn't be trying because the index fund is going to outperform.
Wow.
Yeah, it's crazy.
That's saying a lot. I mean, okay, I'm going to recap just for the sake of our listeners, because you have shared information that we don't come across every day. So I want to, no, seriously. So I want to make sure that we have some key takeaways, right? Always good to have some key takeaways. If you are employed by a company that will match your 401k, match that baby, match it. If your health insurance plan has a health savings account, take advantage of that. I've never seen such tax benefits around. I mean, the HSA, I was like kicking myself because I had access to it for years and I didn't do it. Then the Roth, you can put in up to $6,000 a year, the Roth IRA. Great tax benefits there. All right. Number 4, the 401k, 401(b), that is after the 6,000. If you still got money after that 6,000, then just add more back to the 401k. And if you want to invest even more, you have the money, then the next thing is just opening up a brokerage account with a Vanguard, a Fidelity, or Schwab, someplace like that. Index funds, please, index funds. If you started investing and you didn't know about index funds, reallocate, make some adjustments. I think that if Warren Buffett would put his money in index funds, then it's a safe place or a good place for all of us to be checking into and making sure that we are putting some money into an index fund. All right. And then if you have something like what you shared, like if you have something like Robinhood or someplace where you're trying to guess what you should invest in, know that your data is being used, right? And they're just going to do the opposite of what you're doing. That was some key information that most people don't know. That was great. All right. So make sure, and you talked about the 3-fund portfolio, right? Mm-hmm. U.S., international, and bonds. And then as you age, you want to reallocate towards bonds just for the stability. You don't need to be taking as much risk as you age. You just want to make sure your money's intact for you when you retire. Jeremy, wow. And I didn't even recap all of it. You said so much more. I mean, just wonderful, wonderful information. And I want the listening audience to act on it. I want us to take action. So Jeremy, can you share with our listening audience, again, all the places that they can find you?
Yeah, and I got my screen sharing. So you can go to personalfinanceclub.com. If you click this little Instagram icon over here, you get to my Instagram, which every single day I post these little helpful these little helpful infographics. Every once in a while I post a picture of myself cooking because it always gets more likes than the actual helpful stuff. But and all the information is baked into this. So if, like you said, if you like go through and you read them all in no specific order, like all the information, same information is there. You can also, if you have questions, you can hit me up on my community. So if you click here and click community, you can see there's like hundreds and hundreds of questions. And so you can search other people's questions, or you can ask your own. You can see there's great conversations. And so if you think your situation is a little bit different, you can hit us up there, and this is all free. And I am releasing a course, which is a paid course. You don't have to buy it. It's the exact same information as everywhere else. But if you're out of debt and you have extra money and you just want it laid out in a more consistent way, you can buy this course, which is getting released October 1st. But again, like it's exactly what I said here. It's exactly what's on Instagram. It's on the community. It's on all my posts. It's all the same stuff. It's all in all the books. If you want to see the reading list, it's the exact same thing that's in the books. It's just a way that I'm using to fund further pushing out of this messaging if you want to help in that way. But yeah, all these books, this is my reading list, same thing. All says what I've said here. It's all the same stuff. It's all the good altruistic information.
Yeah, and I think last week you recommended The Simple Path to Wealth.
Yeah, it's great.
Yeah, so for those listening, if you don't have that book, you want to get that book, The Simple Path to Wealth, by Collins. Is it Collins?
J.L. Collins. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's a really, like, the first half is like a really easy, fun read, and then the second half is a little more technical, which isn't even that important in my opinion. It's like stuff like required minimum withdrawals when you're 70 or whatever. It's like, you can worry about that when you get there. But, the first half really, I think in the same way that I did a little bit today, bakes into you the importance of investing early and often, the value of index funds, the value of staying the course, the risks of timing the market and jumping in and out and trading and all that stuff. And he does like a really nice job of laying that out.
All right. How long is the course? Is it going to be like by weeks, or is it going to be self-paced? What's that going to be like?
I don't know yet. It's not done. That's what we talked about first. I think it's going to be 5 chapters that are maybe like roughly 1 week each. You could maybe do one chapter, in a few hours or a couple hours if you just want to blow through it in 2 days or something.
Okay.
But yeah, it's probably gonna be 5 chapters, and they're probably gonna take like an hour or 2 each, I'd say.
Okay, wonderful.
Yeah.
Wonderful. Well, I want everybody to go and support Jeremy. Go to personalfinanceclub.com. If you are a Grammer, it's at Personal Finance Club. And I think Facebook is also at Personal Finance Club. Is that right?
Yes.
All right. So go like, support, follow, share, whatever you can do to support what he's doing, because he has been so generous in giving up his time. And we want to just show our appreciation and just show our gratitude for this information. Because if you use the information, it can change your life. I mean, if you put it into practice, it literally can change your financial life, and that for the generations that are coming after you. So, Jeremy, we're grateful. What can I say again, except for thank you. And I just love talking to you. Enjoyed the conversation. And we will keep supporting you, and we'll keep following you. And we are grateful that this is the beginning of a great, great connection. All right, everybody, we're up on the end of our time. If you have questions that you didn't get to ask, you can email them to wealthmatterspodcast@gmail.com. We'll make sure that we get the questions answered for you. We'll get them to Jeremy, or you can just go to personalfinanceclub.com, join the community, however you want to do it. But let's make sure that we are getting the knowledge that we need, because knowledge is power. It's time for us to build wealth so that we can give generously and share good news. Thanks, everybody. This is a wrap on another episode of Wealth Matters for Financial Dominion. We'll see you next week at 1 o'clock. Thanks again, Jeremy.
Thank you for having me.
All righty.